As technology redefines the world, accelerates the pace of change, and challenges the status quo, expectations for modern government services, efficient operations, and effective outcomes have never been higher. Agencies are rethinking business and operating models, including the IT environments that are becoming harder to maintain and even harder to secure. Digital government requires intelligent digital infrastructure to bridge legacy and next-generation technologies, to free IT to shape an unlimited future, protect against cybersecurity threats, and deliver new value, capabilities, and experiences to citizens and employees across any device, any app, any cloud. When it's time to turn the impossible into the essential, the public sector turns to a digital transformation partner with 20 years experience innovating and securing the world's most complex government IT infrastructure as a force for good. Where could an intelligent digital foundation take your mission next?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Aaron Boyd, Senior Editor for Technology and Events at Nextgov, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to the latest edition in our Close-Up series, Conversations with Cloud Leaders. Today, I'm joined by Dave Shive, CIO at the General Services Administration and one of the longest-serving CIOs in government. I'm excited to have him here today to talk about his journey in both public service and cloud computing, and talk with him about what he thinks is next on the federal IT horizon. Dave, thanks for being with us here today.
Great, thanks, Aaron. I'm happy to participate in the conversation. I'm looking forward to it.
So, I mentioned off the top there, one of the longer serving CIOs in government. How long have you been working in IT in government, and how long at GSA?
So I've been at GSA for 8 years. I've been the CIO for almost 6 years. I've been doing public service. I was in state and local government for a while combined with the federal service, it's 11 or 12 years now. So almost half of my career has been in public service so far.
And has all that's been technology? Are you a tech nerd? How did you get into this area?
That's a good question. By education, I'm a meteorologist. I'm going to be a weatherman when I grow up one day. And in my first couple of jobs, I was doing a mix of meteorology and technology. The two are very closely related. And as my career progressed, I started to bend more and more towards the technology side, especially as I got into the operational side of things out in the private sector. And then it became obvious at a certain point that was going to be the career path that was going to be most rewarding for me, most aligned with my skills and interests and stuff like that. So that pivot started probably 20, 25 years ago.
So you mentioned your time at GSA, and since that's going to be the main focus of our conversation here today, when you got to GSA, what did the technology landscape look like, and how has that evolved over the last 6 and 8 years?
That's a really good question, Aaron. I'm usually pretty quick to recognize the hard and excellent work of the people before me. I stand on the shoulders of giants. Casey Coleman, who's now out in the private sector, was the CIO when I came on board. She was followed up by Sunny Hashmi, who happens to now be back at GSA. They did really excellent work, starting a pretty long history of GSA using technology to enable the business mission of the agency, and also expressing that out to our federal partners. So when I came on board, I came on board to a well-run organization, a well-run agency, full stop, but also a well-run technology capability supporting the business mission of the agency. It created a really firm foundation for us to really accelerate a lot of the digital transformation and achieve a lot of the business and technology outcomes we've been able to achieve over the last 6 or 7 years.
Excellent. So what does the IT, because so often when we talk about GSA, as we report on GSA, we're always talking about what that agency is doing for other agencies, because that's the purpose of GSA. But today we're talking about what you all do for yourselves. So what does the technology ecosystem look like right now at GSA? Are you 100% in the cloud? Are you still managing on-prem? I know back a while back, GSA had a lot of hoteling going on with employees coming in and having to just grab a desk and a lot of virtual desktop infrastructure, all that stuff. So how has that evolved in the last 2-3 years, especially, with the last year, everything's kind of getting thrown up in the air.
Right. So I'm a CIO, so I'll regurgitate some numbers for you perspective. On the cloud front, we have 74% of our workloads are off-prem, either in cloud or managed service, which is basically another version of cloud. So 26% of our workloads remain on-prem. We'll continue to chip away at that. We'll never get to zero because having a hybrid environment practically is most beneficial to us as a business. But we'll continue to chip away 3, 4, 5% on that number each year until we find some equilibrium on-prem and off-prem. We're very proud of that. We went from 0% off-prem to that 74% off-prem in about 7 years. So pretty rapid cloud adoption. We're very proud of what we've been able to accomplish there. On the telework, remote work, hoteling model, we've been in that model for 5 or 6 years now. We've had the capability and the capacity to operate in a fully mobile enabled model for a long time now. And it's one of the things that we're quite proud of. We made the investments in time and people and money and technology to mobile enable the agency 5 or 6 years ago, knowing that there's a possibility that there could be tough times that would demand an environment where that would be utilized. And so when the pandemic happened, we were already over 99% mobile enabled, but that doesn't mean everybody was doing that. And we're able to get that up to 100% with about a week of tuning our infrastructure and stuff like that. And then we had to focus a fair amount of time on getting our people who had been trained, who had the right tools and stuff like that, but not everybody was availing themselves of those technologies, that process, getting them to be able to operate as effectively as possible, as effectively offsite as they did on site. And we're able to do that very rapidly as well. We're pretty proud of that.
It looks like you're taking that mobile office capability a little seriously there, huh?
Right. For anybody watching this, this is your government in action here in the 21st century. The car is not moving, but I am in a car somewhere in upstate New York headed to DC right now. And, we literally can do the work of GSA from any place, any location, anytime on any device. And this is a perfect example. I can even do a media interview from any place, any location on any device.
Yeah. So I want to dig into a couple of those things, because not only have you all been doing this for a while, but your colleagues at other federal agencies, some of them have been doing this equally as long. Some of them are still figuring out the remote work piece and what the next step is going to look like. So a couple of things I wanted to break down. One of them, we were mentioning, I mentioned the hoteling, and you were talking about that as well. Less the workforce side of that, more the tech side of that. Because I know some agencies, and I know some businesses as well, are looking into that as the new normal coming out of this pandemic, where a lot of their employees are going to remain remote workers. So how do you use your office space to the best degree? So not so much from the physical space and the workforce stuff, but from the tech. What do they have to think about to really make that work? How do you make sure everybody has what they need and can optimize the space you have while allowing people to remain remote if they want to be?
That's a really good question. On the pure tech side, you can mobile enable a business unit, an agency, a corporation. You can do, like anything, you can do it okay, and you can do it really well. And how you define what's okay and what's really well changes over time. Most of the infrastructure that we laid out to mobile enable the agency, we did that 4 or 5 years ago. That would be considered legacy infrastructure now. So the idea that you would have laptops and have a VPN overlay to secure it so that you can make the corporate boundaries extensible out to endpoints and stuff like that. That was all really great mobile enablement technology 5 years ago. But that's what we're running on, because that's when we deployed the stuff. We're finding, though, that a good mobile enabled environment now looks very, very different. It looks like a secure access service edge type of model. It looks like zero trust. It looks like visible boundaries between what's in and out of the corporate network, and instead you just assume that everything is out and secure accordingly. Things like that. People who are implementing zero trust right now and software defined everything right now, this will all be very familiar to them. So we're finding that we have to make that pivot to do that. And then at the more granular tactical level, our people, the technology that they use, they're still interacting with their government computing assets through a laptop or a tablet or a cell phone or whatever. But we're finding that what makes them successful and what makes them happy oftentimes are two separate things. So when we, GSA, had all of our people go work outside of GSA buildings in response to the pandemic, we gave them laptops and cell phones and stuff like that. But what we found is they started to say, well, what about my keyboard? What about my big monitor? And what about my mouse? And what about my printers and things like that? What about my thumb drives? All these tools that they had ready access to in the office environment, they don't have such ready access. And so we, as stewards of taxpayer dollars, have to say, how far do we outfit that, and at what cost? And is that good use of taxpayer dollars to do that? And here's the key piece: what does that do for employee productivity? Are they more productive when the government makes those investments? Stuff like that. That's all work that's taking place right now to analyze that, so we can come at it from a fact-based, data-based mindset, and then make decisions on outfit our people to prosecute their mission, to do the mission of GSA on a daily basis from any environment.
So how are you doing that analysis? Is it interviews with employees? Are you doing like big data polls based off of telemetry and all that stuff? How are you getting the information you need to make those business decisions?
So it's kind of all of the above. So GSA had started actually just before the pandemic an initiative called Workplace 2030. And it was envisioning what the federal workplace, not just the GSA workplace, but the federal workplace might look like in 2030. That naturally has been accelerated to Workplace 2022 because the need is right now, and evidenced by the pandemic. And so we have been spending time with CIOs of other agencies. We've been spending time with employees of other agencies. We've been surveying our internal employees. GSA, we don't like to sell or do for our federal partners what we haven't tried out on ourselves first. So we're using ourselves as a green proving ground to assess what the art of the possible is on use of technologies that work out of the office, work in the office, work in a hybrid environment, stuff like that. So yeah, we're talking to tons of people. We are using telemetry. We see the actions that GSA employees and some of our partner agency employees, when they allow us to, we see their actions. We see what's effective. We see what's not effective. And when we try out new technologies, new business process, new ways of doing things, we can see the effectiveness of doing those things. So that gets entered into the decision machine as well. And our hope is at the end, we'll be able to say, here's what the workplace of the future will look like. Here's what we recognize out in commercial best practice, because we're spending time talking with our commercial counterparts as well, saying, what are you doing? And then we're also talking with providers, the providers of the tech and the workplace infrastructure, say, what are the trends that you're seeing? It's a place of massive change right now. And we're trying to build all of this ideation under an agile model, knowing that what's possible right now is going to be very different than what's possible in 6 months or 12 months from now. So any visioning that we do about the new way the government's going to work and how GSA helps the government do that needs to have that agility to be able to shape and change with the times.
Yeah, real interesting. We were talking before again about the people working fully remote, working from their home or from their cars, wherever they may be, and then coming into the office. When you design the office right now, and again, something that GSA has had experience with because you all have been doing hoteling and different hybrid office environments for some time. So as other agencies are looking at how to do this well, do you basically outfit people the same for being fully mobile and being hoteled at the office, or is there a different setup? Basically, I'm thinking, do you just say, here's your laptop and your whatever else your cell phone, all your devices, you can use them at home, you can use them at the office, or is it tailored differently?
So it's not so much tailored to where people work. Back when we started to mobile enable the agency, one of the key constructs of how we architected the solution was to be able to work from any place. And so we have ubiquitous technology that allows us to do that. It doesn't matter if you're in an office and outside an office. If you're in an office, you might be able to dock your laptop, which would be different than your experience at home, but they're de minimis changes there. What we found, Aaron, is the part of the equation that people really don't talk about. It's you got to give them good, hardware that's not going to fail and stuff like that. But architecting your application layer, your data science, data analytics layer to be able to work effectively in that environment, that's a whole nother story. And frankly, that's the harder part of mobile enabling not only an agency, but the people who work in that agency. And then one of the things, so there's a natural tension as a technologist that I have, and that is I want to simplify and standardize technology because that brings my costs down. It makes maintainability of the platform more effective, actually typically increases customer experience and customer satisfaction scores, stuff like that. At the same time, I want to be able to deploy technology that's tailored to the specific business missions of the employees of either GSA or our partner agencies where we're providing tech for them. And so that natural tension is tough. What we've found is on the hardware piece, standardize as much as possible. On the software piece, on the data side, on the application layer side, that allows for some pretty savvy tailoring. And allows us to express the technology that employees need to do their business, to do their work in a way that's suitable for them, not specifically, not at the individual layer, but at the business unit layer. And we find that is really helpful. You have to have some pretty modern tech. You have to have some pretty savvy tech in place. But if you choose your providers right, if you're heavily invested in the cloud, things like that, it really helps promote that type of environment.
What's the difficulty there? Why is it that if people aren't in a physical space where you know everything about the physical space, right? You know the connection coming in and you know the provider and all that stuff. What is it about getting out of that safe space that makes it difficult to manage the applications and the data and all that stuff in a different way?
Yeah, so it's a battle between legacy technology and new and emerging tech. New and emerging tech, cloud-based tech with mobile-enabled hardware components, typically is designed with the user at the very front, user experience, and is baked in at the design level. And one of the things that users have been telling technologists for years is they want custom ability. They want configurability. They want their user presentation layer to present data in a seamless, easy to digest manner. And so when you're buying new tech, if you're buying it right, it has all of those tenets baked in from the very beginning. For the legacy tech, typically the design thinking was not a normal part of legacy tech build and design. And that legacy tech, which is usually tied to a place, server rooms and on-prem infrastructure and stuff like that, that infrastructure was just present the data as quickly as possible and as effectively as possible, without a lot of thinking about how's this going to impact the user, how seamless and transparent is the technology? Are they able to focus all the brain cycles on the business at hand rather than fiddling with the technology to get the best outcomes, stuff like that? So it's not really mobile or not, it's really a battle between legacy and modern tech. And so that's why when I'm talking with some of my peers, the vast majority of our conversation is centered around What are those tools? What are those systems? What are those capabilities that have this design thinking baked in from the very beginning? Because that's the real game changer, and increasing productivity, increasing efficiency.
Yeah, excellent. So we're running low on time here, so I want to wrap up talking about what's next, what's in the future, because you mentioned, the 2030 plan is kind of, blown up because the future is now, with
Right.
everything that needs to go on. So with that in mind, with the accelerating that timeline for what you had planned,
Right.
what's beyond that? What's the not the we're not talking 50 years in the future, but what's the next 5 to 10 years for federal technology from your perspective? Again, you're working for a single agency, but I feel like you have a little extra purview because GSA does so much work for everybody. So what's the federal government going to look like in 5, 10 years with regard to technology and cloud and the like?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I kind of got to say it. I expect that cybersecurity will continue to be a thing that we're paying a lot of time and attention to. It doesn't matter how good you do your tech, the adversaries of the United States are interested in disrupting that in government. And I don't expect that's going to change. I'm hopeful that it will, but I don't expect that's going to change. I suspect that we'll be talking more and more about common solutions, so that the government is buying once or building once and using many rather than buying the same thing over and over and over again. That's really good for revenues for companies and industry partners that are supporting government. Not so good for taxpayers, not so good for government. So I expect that's going to be a big piece. I suspect that open source will continue to be an increasingly useful way of for CIOs and the like to be able to deliver capability rapidly. That's been crowdsourced a bit so that you get that kind of best design thinking and user experience in there. So in GSA specifically, we're going through, this is going to sound old and trite, we're going through a digital transformation. Most people would immediately say, well, didn't you do that already? And we did. But digital transformation is a layered thing.
It's a journey.
Yes, we'll be further along in the journey. I suspect the government as a whole, and GSA will be a part of this, will be consuming technology and using technology in ways that are very familiar to the citizens we serve right now, their experiences in their commercial lives, when they go to order cable TV, or when they go to the car dealership or actually don't go to the car dealership, or buy a car online and things like that. I suspect that part of that digital transformation, where we're literally digital from end to end, rather than just being a digital copy of an old analog process, which is what is pretty much the case in government right now, that we'll be digital end to end, and that's going to express better government out to the citizens we're serving. And I expect over the next 5+ years, there's going to be a ton of work in that space.
Yeah, it's the way you said that makes me think of it in a different way, because you're saying things that we've heard government harp on before, especially around customer service, right? And delivering better digital services. But the way you said it made me think, so often I think of technology delivery in government as trying out the newest, latest thing to improve stuff. But the citizens, the users, at this point are digitally savvy enough that they want stuff that feels familiar. They don't want cutting edge new things that make it harder for them to interact, right? They want it to feel like a familiar digital experience.
The way I couch it, Aaron, is I call it transparent technology. New technology is kind of neat, but it gets pretty stale pretty quick. And only certain parts of our population actually care about new technology. Larger parts care that it works. And I think the best technology is technology that's invisible to the user, where the user doesn't even really register to them that they're using technology, because all of their time, all of their attention is focused on whatever thing they're trying to do. Buy a new thing, move a workflow through its life cycle, whatever, do a transaction. If their focus is on that instead of cursing their computer or bouncing their mouse and saying, why is that not working, stuff like that, that's, I think, the best use of technology. If the technology just disappears into the ether and people are just able to do the thing they want to do without thinking. So that's one of our goals here at GSA. You can come back and ask me in a few years, see how I did.
And if the past is any indication, you'll still be around doing this at GSA, huh?
Nice. Well, it's been, people ask me why I stick around. It's my greatest professional honor to be a public servant and to work for government and downstream to the citizens we serve. It's so rewarding. You get to a point in your career where you're looking for what's most rewarding, and it's so rewarding to be able to have a positive, demonstrative impact on the people in my circles, the people in my community, the people in my church, the people, that I, in my neighborhood, my family members. I know the work that I'm doing in a small way impacts them, and that's just so rewarding.
Well, unfortunately, we are out of time, but it's been a great talking with you here, Dave. Thanks for joining us and sharing about the work you do and the public services you provide.
Great. Thanks, Aaron.
For everybody out there, be sure to stay tuned to Nextgov for continuing coverage of the federal cloud space, and check out our other great videos in this close-up series as well. For Nextgov, I'm Aaron Boyd. We'll see you next time.